Hi, I'm Tony Wakefield, Training Director for the Informa Telecoms Academy, and I'm here today with Dave McNally, who heads up our Advanced Communication Technology training, and we're going to talk about 5G. So, Dave, if I could just start off, you spent much of the last few years training the industry on some really in-depth LTE topics, including radio planning. So you're very familiar with the benefits that LTE brings to the industry. So what is it that 5G will offer over and above what we already see with LTE and LTE Advanced?
Capacity is certainly one thing that 5G will bring. It's expected to support much higher data rates than we currently see with LTE or with LTE Advanced, but it's also more about I guess it's developing a whole ecosystem for a wide range of different kinds of services that the operators need to be moving towards. So there's the consumers are in there, of course, with their smartphones and tablets and so on, but also enterprises and verticals, other industries that the operators will be in a position to support. So it's really looking at the whole ecosystem of service and supporting services that 5G really brings, which perhaps we've not seen such a fully formed description really of that kind of thing with LTE or LTE Advanced.
So is it about satisfying the needs of the Internet of Things, a bit of a buzzword in the industry at the moment? And does it bring in perhaps new scenarios, or does it cater for alternative scenarios?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Internet of Things, you say, is kind of a big buzzword at the moment. Yeah, so there's the the NGMN and the ITU really define what they refer to as use cases, and the use cases try to incorporate well any manner of communication that you might consider. So and things like machine type communications are included as part of that.
Okay, what about things like low latency? So, for example,
Mm.
we hear a lot about driverless cars. I mean, obviously for connected cars and other connected systems, latency is paramount. Does 5G is it specified to make sure that some of those use cases are absolutely um, nailed and we have the right sort of support within the connectivity?
Yeah, well, that's I think in defining these use cases, one thing there's a really good white paper from the NGMN that kind of defines well, first of all, defines what the use cases are, and there's like a 50 megabit broadband everywhere. There are the machine type communications, broadcasting, sort of critical communications, and what they do is they kind of break each of those use cases down into what the actual service requirements would be. So in certain cases, where we've got machine type communications, things like the latency, the throughput and the required latency are actually specified. Now at the moment it's just I suppose it's a bit of a wish list really. So it's a long list of how fast should it be, what should the reliability and connection type be for those things, including things like latency. So I suppose we're going to have to wait until we see the technical standards before we actually discover how they're going to support latency times of as low as a millisecond in some cases.
So it seems like flexibility is going to be one of the absolutely key um, foundations of 5G. So does that pull through to the technologies? Are we going to see a range of different technologies on the radio interface, for example?
Yeah, I think definitely 5G has to be flexible, and I suppose with flexibility is going to come a great deal of complication. So I mean, what we know about what the core network and the network technologies might look like, you've got to try and build an access network and a core network that can do all of these things and do them all kind of equally well. So one of the sort of proposals that we're seeing at the moment is this idea that you can have like a profile for a different service, and that profile will define what the network element configuration should be. So if you wanted to connect your, refrigerator or sensor array or autonomous car, then there will be a pre-built profile that will configure the network for the device that's attempting that communication. Um, and I guess that's one way. We're also going to kind of try and leverage things like NFV and SDN, and to a certain extent things like cloud as well, to make the network as flexible and I suppose as cost effective for the operators to deploy as possible.
Okay, so things like profiles we've seen before in other technologies, even some technologies that are being, for example, used for the Internet of Things like
Mm.
Bluetooth at the moment. Just as an example, you mentioned NFV. A lot of work is already going on in those areas. So is 5G, is it something which is brand new or is it something which is just an evolution of things that we are already working on? Is it a combination? How do you see it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be an evolution of what we're using at the moment. Uh, I think, well, as far as access network technology is concerned, of course, the big thing at the moment is LTE Advanced. So things like carrier aggregation and all the clever, MIMO stuff, that kind of high capacity MIMO stuff, small cells, heterogeneous networks. I mean, we'll see all of those technologies being further developed for 5G. And then when you look towards the core network, we see familiar things in there as well. I mentioned NFV, network function virtualization, software-defined networks, and sort of leveraging cloud ideas and technologies. So it's really just a collection of things that we perhaps have some experience of already, but putting them together in a much more defined ecosystem, which allows the operators to engage with their service partners in a much, well, we hope in a much easier and hopefully a cost-effective manner.
Okay, now as new techniques become available, I guess we might see some of those sort of brought into the 5G fold, and of course a bigger 3GPP fold. Okay, just in terms of timelines, for example, Informa Telecoms and Media, we are running the 5G World event this year, formerly the LTE World Summit. So already through the conferences, the industry leaders are starting to talk about 5G much more seriously. Um, have we got any sort of feel for when this is going to be deployed in any sort of numbers?
2020 is the date. I mean, the IT are running a project at the moment, which is IMT 2020, and 2020 seems to be the date at which the standards will be complete. But I think when you look at the ITU timelines and the NGMN timelines and really what people like 3GPP are looking at, then sort of 2018, 2019 seems to be when we'll first start to see some technical standards emerging. And then maybe after sort of 2020, we'll begin to see some commercial implementations of those, perhaps on a small scale or even an R&D scale at that point. So I think sort of 5 to 10 years is a sort of reasonable timescale to start expecting to see 5G technologies out there.
Okay, we've both been in the industry for many years. Is this just hype, or is 5G going to bring real benefits?
Uh, I think it will bring some real benefits, but it's hard to say exactly what those benefits will be because again, when you look at some of these use cases, there's one particular use case which is designed for sort of high density indoor networks, and it's claiming to be able to deliver something like a gigabit per second to each user within that environment. And it's kind of hard to imagine at the moment what we would, why would my smartphone, my tablet need a gigabit per second, 500 megabits per second in the uplink. So it's difficult to imagine what those things are, but if the capability is there, I'm quite sure that the application developers and within the service industry, I'm quite sure that they will think of things for us to do with their capabilities like that. Maybe more important on the industrial side, again, when you come back to machine type communications, the whole IoT, I think with 5G there'll be quite an intense focus on supporting the IoT and machine to machine type communications. That's probably where we'll see a lot of activity, I think.
Okay, Dave, I think we'll leave it there. Thanks very much, and we'll see you all soon.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. See you soon.